WWE Universe, the D-Lew Podcast is now a brand affiliate of WWEshop.com. That's right. Get all of your latest merchandise from your favorite WWE superstars and wear them proud. So whether it's CM Punk, Randy Orton, L.A. Knight, Rhea Ripley, Seth Rollins, the Tribal Chief himself, Roman Reigns, and legends like Bret the Hitman Hart, The Rock, and Stone Cold Steve Austin, and so many more. Did I mention championship belts? That's right. Get all of your favorite championship belts through the years, including that favorite Spinner WWE Championship. But also, if you're an NFL fan, you can get your very own team championship belt. If you're a Cowboys fan, if you're a Cleveland Browns fan, heck, if you're an LA Rams fan, it doesn't matter. The WWE shop will have your belt for you. So once again, go to the link that's in the description, and you can go to the D-Lew Podcast, WWEshop.com affiliate page where you can get all of your favorite merchandise. Get yours now. This podcast is a Believe Network and Siete production. Welcome to another edition of the D-Lew Podcast, brought to you by Believe Network. I'm your host, Derrick T. Lewis, and I hope the week is treating you great. I'm just going to get right into it right now. This interview that I did for this episode is one of the coolest ones that I ever get a chance to do. You know, I had an opportunity to do a sit-down interview, an exclusive interview with my very own mother, who was the former lead singer of an R&B group called The Pretenders, Valerie Lewis. When I tell you all that a lot of things I know about music, you know, has a lot to do with my mom, as well as my dad too, but especially my mom that had so much music around the house that I was able to really teach, you know, to learn and understand so much. And we talk about her early stages, you know, in childhood, how she discovered music for the first time, her first record player, how she listened to Motown for the first time being on the East Coast, and how she became the lead singer of The Pretenders. Let's not wait any longer. My interview with my mom, Valerie Lewis, starts right now. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be one of the coolest interviews that I get to do in my podcasting career and just my career in entertainment. The woman that I'm interviewing today not only gave me a deep education in music, you know, growing up, but this is the woman that gave birth to me. But the coolest thing is when I was younger, I found out that not only was my father involved in the music industry, but my mother was too. She was the lead singer of The Pretenders, and not to be confused with the group The Pretenders that came out in the 80s. They were from Europe, I believe. But she's here with us today. My mom, the one and only Valerie Lewis. Thank you so much for joining the D-Lew Podcast. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm beyond excited to do this. Out of every, you know, episode that I've done, you know, since I relaunched this podcast about a year ago, you know, this is the one I was looking forward to. And, you know, to really give it a jump in regards to what we want to talk about today is really covering, you know, the few years that you were in the music industry and what you were able to accomplish from that. Your story was never told. And I felt as though, as much as, you know, I tout about my dad's accomplishments in music, and I do mention yours, I feel as though that this needs to be told, and just from your lens, not from mine, but from yours. So every story has its beginning. Mine's not mine. Of course, I'm not the only one, of course, but just wanted to talk about life growing up in Newark, New Jersey as a child. So what was your life growing up, typical growing up in New Jersey?
Well, like you said, I grew up in the city of Newark during the 50s, 60s. And life for me was really great. The city of Newark was a flourishing town, during those times. I mean, you had a lot of industry in the city, and a lot of integration, where I lived anyway. So, growing up in Newark was really great. And, I had good times. I had a lot of friends. I grew up going to Newark Public Schools. I went to, oh my goodness, Avon Avenue School, and then on to Clinton Place Junior High at that time, and on to Southside High School. Graduated in 1965, and Bulldogs, Bow Wow Wow. So it was fun times. It was good times.
Awesome. So, what was the earliest memories you have of music? Can you recall, the first artist that you heard, and what was it that captivated you as a music fan during, especially in the 1950s?
Oh wow. Well, it's a funny thing. Your grandma, my mother,
Mm-hmm.
I had a small record player during those days, in the early 1950s. And I remember Shirley Temple, The Good Ship Lollipop.
Okay. Talk about that for a little bit.
It was just a little record player, it was vinyl, folks
Right.
don't know too much about vinyl, but
They're actually making a comeback, actually, just for the record. Vinyl is making its comeback, and more people are just buying it for the pure nostalgia, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, but that's what we had during those days.
Right.
There was nothing else. The actual record itself was colored red, and put it on, and she'd be singing, "On the good ship, lollipop, it's a nice trip to the candy shop where bonbons play." So I remember singing during those days. I remember R&B singers, Della Reese. I can't recall the name of the song that she did at that time, but I remember Della Reese, Patti Page, singers in that caliber. Mostly, what was pop music during those times. So I grew up with music, knowing music, listening to music, and I always loved to sing. And whatever I heard, I kind of imitated the artist. Della Reese, I hear the sound of music, your greatest kind of music, and that reminds me, dear, of you, dear. If there could be no roses, no something, kind of roses.
Right.
But I grew up listening to that music and really trying to adopt the sound. I remember Ella Fitzgerald, the Tisket a Tasket, a gray and yellow basket. So those things, I hold dear to my heart. I hold on to those, to those memories and those legendary black female singers during that time, and even our white sisters during that time. It was about music,
right?
And it was good for me, and music, is good for anybody. So if you take the time just to listen.
Absolutely. So you mentioned artists like Della Reese and Ella Fitzgerald. Now, were there some other favorites that you had, during those times where you were able to say, that's somebody? Because obviously, how you consumed music during those years was a much different. By the time my generation came around, there was no music videos back then. There was, So basically, it was like either the record player or the radio. So, who were some of the ones that you latched onto as you were growing up? Some ones that were around in your age group that you listened to?
Oh, Sarah Vaughan was another. Also, Billy Eckstine. I'm going way back into, early kind of jazzy kind of stuff. Billy Eckstine, Sarah Vaughan. These people were Billie Holiday. She was still hanging around there. And it was just good music. you could understand what they were saying. It was just good music. I remember Count Basie, the musician, the Count. He'd get on those ivories and he'd go to work. Lionel Hampton with the vibes. And, these were musicians, and you learned that although I never played an instrument, but you accepted and loved music for what it was and what it gave and what it generated. Certain sounds you would hear. Even today, I listen to music and I can hear what the bass is doing. I love a bass. What the bass line is doing, what the guitar is doing, and listening to the drummer and what he is actually doing. So I've learned to appreciate, music, in its worth, what it's worth. Yeah.
That's incredible to say, because I have that same, type of characteristic when it comes to music as well, because a lot of times I pay attention to certain elements of a song, especially if it's the first time that I'm hearing it, and I don't care what genre it is, because to be honest, the bass, I think, is the to me the meat and bones of the melody. It carries the melody in there. It carries it, because a lot of times that's the melody, the part of the song that you're going to remember most is the bass line.
Yeah. People don't give the bassist that much credit, though. You hear what the horn might be doing, the piano, but that bass line, he's carrying it through, and he's evening everything out, and he's giving room for all the other instrumentation to do what they have to do, but he's laying back there in the cut and he's dealing, So I love a good bass line.
I'll give you an example, Mom. Mm-hmm. The one of the most iconic bass lines that people still love today is Billie Jean.
Yeah, and that bass, he's just walking. He's just going through.
So everybody, because the minute that people hear that, it's like, oh man, Billy. It's just one of those things. Those like iconic bass lines that you're always gonna remember. You know what I mean? Yeah. Now, you were talking about when you said you were imitating more or less what you heard when you were singing. Right. Now, did you take any lessons, or you were this is just more or less raw talent from your end? You just having that raw talent to just do what you've, I guess, some of the things that you heard that you were able to carry out.
No, I never had voice lessons. I never had any kind of voice lessons. I would just say that it was a gift, and it was just something that I could hear, and I would just try to imitate what I was listening to.
Right.
Yeah. So no, I never had any voice lessons. Never had any lessons at all.
Now, obviously growing up, when I said in the beginning of this interview that, I had a free education, in music, that's factual facts, because you had so many 45s, you had so many records, EPs, LPs, and things of that nature. Yeah. So in the consumption of music during that time, how was that for you? Because growing up in the singing, obviously growing up in the 50s and high school years in the 60s, how was that for you in being able to consume as much music as you did?
I just loved it. We had I remember in 5th or 6th grade, sitting down at the table in the kitchen and writing down a song. Those are the bells. Those are the bells that I hear ringing. Those are the bells. Ding dong, ding ding dong, ding dong, ding ding dong. And had a little group. It was myself and Jerry, of course, and
Aunt Jerry,
and another guy in our class. I think his name was Willie. I can't remember his last name. And we would, get in the living room for about 10 minutes, and we'd do that, and everybody would rush out and go home.
Right.
But it's for me, it's going back, because it was just something that it was in my soul, and even to today. Rather than just, watching a movie or something, I find myself, putting on some music. I'd rather listen to music than to watch television.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So, at what age did it, pop into your mind of wanting to one day be in the music industry as a singer? Like, when was that? When that light bulb went off, it said, you know what? I could see myself doing that. I could see myself doing what I see, whether on television or things you've heard on the radio or records that you've heard. The Ella Fitzgerald you talked about, Della Reese.
Going back to that.
Really?
I could. Yeah. I mean, it was just music has always been embedded in me. It's something that I've loved. I mean, down to commercials. I mean, and listening to, because I go back to, I don't know if you remember. No, you wouldn't remember. But does soap detergent and when soap operas was 15 minutes long, that's why they call them soaps, because the it was always the soap advertisements that was right there. So does, that was the slogan for. So it's just certain things. I just remember those things, and I cherish those moments and those days, because they were good. They were actually good. Yeah.
Now, as we're entering into the 60s now obviously was it 1959, I believe, was the birth of the juggernaut out of Detroit, Michigan called Motown, and we talk about the iconic artists that came out of that. And when you talk about Marvin Gaye, we talk about Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, Martha and the Vandellas, I believe, the Supremes, the Temptations. The list goes on and on. So again, there was no social media back then. There was no music videos and everything back then. How did Motown make its way around during it? Because this is an education for me, because I find that as great as that label was, and I think it still is, because they're revered to this day because of what Berry Gordy saw, his vision of not just them being the best black artists, but them being the greatest artist of all time, regardless of color. Right. So how did that make its way around? And what was the first, I guess, who was the first Motown artist that you heard that it said, oh, wow, they're really, really good?
Oh, wow. I remember, let me see now. We're going to go back a minute. I remember my friend, my good friend. I love him dearly. He's passed on now, Larry.
Uncle Larry. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, one of the greatest DJs there ever been.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen. And let me just say this. If you ever Google if you talk about legendary DJs out of the state of New Jersey, there's Tony Humphries and all these others. But if you Google Larry Patterson, he's one of the greatest DJs that ever lived, especially out of this area. Just wanted to give him a huge shout out.
Yes,
rest in peace, Uncle Larry. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, he and I went to school together, and Larry used to listen to radio way late at night, and he came, to the house one day running with his little transistor radio, and all we had then was Cousin Brucey, WABC, 77 on the dial. And he would listen to radio late at night, and somehow he could pick up during the night, overnight, he could pick up music from the Detroit, Chicago area.
Okay.
And he was telling me about this song that he heard. It was the Supremes, Where Did Our Love Go? And I knew about the song before it actually, before we actually got it here in Jersey, by him telling me about it late at night that he would hear it. Somehow, those dials and buttons and what have you,
right,
would cross over, and he would hear it like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I tried it, and it was difficult for me to stay up that late, but I did it, and sure enough, the Supremes went, baby, 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 don't leave me.
Yeah.
So I could hear that, we heard that, and even the Four Tops. I can't think of the song right now that I want to think of, but just to name a couple of coming out of Detroit, it was amazing because it was a new sound. It was a different kind of sound, and it was like, wow, you could hear the drummer. It was a certain sound that Motown had with that drummer. It was something about that drummer in Motown. You was, oh yeah, that's a Motown sound right there.
Mm-hmm.
So, just listening to the Four Tops and even Smokey, ooh, baby. I mean, this is a few years later. But I mean, just "Shop Around" was that song that he had out doing the Miracles.
Right.
Shop around. My mama told me you
Better shop around.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this was a kind of something else that was going on. And we just kind of latched on to it. By the time it got to New York and New Jersey, we were already grooving to it. We knew about it already. But it was a good sound, a great sound. And wow. And then here comes little Stevie Wonder with Fingertips. Oh, my goodness gracious. It was like this little guy was, I think, 12 at the time. And, who could even begin to imagine somebody with a harmonica and with a voice like that, and it was just phenomenal. So it was a good time for us. It was really a good time. We began to dance, and here comes Martha and the Vandellas with Heat Wave and Quicksand and all of that. I mean, honestly, it was just growing up for me. In those mid '60s was phenomenal. It was great. It was really great.
There were so many things in the '60s that I think helped. In so many aspects of society, music especially, I thought helped usher in so much down the road. But I think Motown, I felt, was the anchor that really held it all together. Because that was a roster that is legendary that I don't think we'll ever see again, of so many talented individuals, so many talented groups that held their own.
Yeah, that came out of Motown. Mary Wells.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness, Mary Wells, my guy. And It Takes Two. All of them. Marvin Gaye, Tammy Terrell. It was legendary. I don't believe can ever be reproduced.
No. I don't think so either. So now that you're consuming a lot of music, there's Motown, there's all these other artists that you listen to. So let's talk about when you started to take this music thing seriously, and as far as your career is concerned. Mm-hmm. How did it come to be? Now, did you join the Pretenders? How did the Pretenders become? How did that happen?
Well, actually, what happened, Larry and I began singing together ourselves. We hit what we called back during those days the Chitlin circuit.
Exactly. Uh-huh.
We were going to the little the bars, and you always had that back room. There only some people would pay, their few dollars to get in the back room to see the talent, that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So Larry and I, we hit the streets and we auditioned, and we would get with whatever the band was that was playing, in the back room. We would, rehearse with them, and we'd have a night. We'd sing, and what happened? Someone heard us, saw us singing, and said that there was a spot that was open with some guys who, were singing, and they were looking for a girl. And they asked me, would I be interested in taking that spot? And I was like, well, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Butterflies started to hit my belly at that time. Because I was just used to my friend. I was used to, singing with Larry. And got together with the guys, and we did do, we sat and we talked, and, as to where they wanted to go, what they wanted to do. And so, we began rehearsing, at my house, and we would rehearse every Monday evening, and for like 3-4 hours or something, and then boom, we started out, and we would do the same thing, make that Chitlin Market move, and talk to whoever the band leader was at that was playing at that particular room, that back room or club. We would set up a time we could rehearse, and then boom.
Let me ask you this though, before we go any further. So when you and Uncle Larry were doing your thing, as far as going to the bars, now was this original pieces you guys were doing, or was it more or less some of the stuff you were doing, more or less doing covers? And even with the Pretenders in the beginning, was it all original stuff in the beginning, or was you guys doing a lot of covers?
No, it was a lot of covers. I mean, with Uncle Larry, as you know, we did Chain, with Aretha Franklin. We did Knock on Wood, Eddie Floyd. I better knock, knock, knock. On wood. He would take a part, and I would take a part. And we did something by Otis Redding as well. Tramp, and he and I can't remember her name right now. But we did, we did a lot of cover stuff. But we did a lot of put a little act into it,
Right.
And Larry and I danced together. So in a lot of these stage appearances that we did some dance, and we had some dance moves that went along with that.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. We used to cut her up, child. I'm telling you, we had fun. We did fun stuff. We enjoyed what we did, and it was just natural.
Right.
It just came natural. Nobody had any dancing lessons. Nobody had any singing lessons. We just did
just raw talent.
What came naturally, to us. Yeah, and we had fun and we enjoyed it. What we did. Yeah. So by the time we came to be the Pretenders, we actually had a name that we used. We called ourselves the Explosions. Yeah, and we had a guy, his name was Toby, and Toby had a 2-string guitar, but you're talking about somebody that could play something with a 2-string guitar, and he made music, and what he did, he said, I'm going to set up something for you guys, so when you guys perform, they're going to introduce you with this, and he was so gifted until he could listen to airplane take off, because where he lived was close to the airport. And when the airplane would take off, he would somehow get that sound from the airplane, like boom. And that would be our come on, as this. Now, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the Explosions. And he put that sound on, and boom, that was our intro, and it was just amazing. And we called ourselves the Explosions. And so by the time, we did get to now Carnival Records with Joe Evans, who was the president at that time. He was the owner of Carnival Records. We searched out a name, and I think it was Joe that came up with the name Pretenders. That's how we got the name.
Wow. So as you all were beginning to, to gel, as a group, because obviously during this time, I would imagine that it was another band or group with 3 guys and a girl, Gladys Knight and the Pips. Now, was that the direction that you all wanted to go in? Was a similar act, or were you all trying to carve your own path and do your own thing?
Well, it was a starter. It was a starter, and knowing that Gladys and the Pips were out there, so hey, yeah, why not? Why not go for it? And we did Grapevine, and the guys, they did their routine and what have you. So we did do. Heard it through the grapevine, and I mean, we would rip it up. We would oh my goodness gracious. And then we did some slower stuff. Steal Away was, I think it was a gentleman by the name of Jimmy Hughes that sang "I Want to See You Somehow," and but it was just Jimmy. But at the same time, the guys, they were able to choreograph and put a little background thing to it. So we were just reaching. We just wanted to sing. The guys would make up the routines, as we used to call it back then. Choreograph some stuff. But we just, whatever was out there that we figured we could do, we did. We just did it. We went for it.
So when it came down to, obviously, so was, you said Carnival Records. So were there any other, because like a lot nowadays, I mean, there's so many labels out there and everything. I even have my own, which is, again, I only produce myself. Yeah. But there's so many different labels out there. So were there any other labels outside of Carnival that were interested in the Pretenders, or was that more or less the goal was signing with them?
Well, we were introduced to them by some, I can't remember the gentleman's name, who told us, that perhaps Joe was, might be interested, right, in producing, a group. Why don't you go over, talk to him, and see what comes of it. So, we were able to make contact with him, and we went over, we sat down, and we discussed with him, what it was that we wanted to do. And, he was a bit reluctant. I don't want to get into the particulars now as to why, but he was a bit reluctant at first. But Joe had a great musical background himself. I think he was a trombone player at one time, and he was very familiar with the Count Basie era, and so he knew about Motown. I think he did some background stuff, at Motown, with musician work, I should say,
right?
At Motown at one time. So he had music in his blood, in his veins as well, and I think he saw the hunger that we had, and he decided to give us an opportunity to go for it. He said he was willing to to help us as much as he could. So, and he did that.
Wow, that's awesome. This episode of the D-Lew Podcast is brought to you by Goalie Nutrition. As someone who's used Goalie for quite some time, I can tell you that they're not only very good, but they're very beneficial. My favorite are the Super Green Gummies. The Super Green Gummies are uniquely crafted with a spectrum of essential nutrients such as vitamins A, B12, folic acid, and thiamine. It supports a healthy liver function, healthy nervous and immune system, digestive health, a boost to your metabolism, and overall health and well-being. There are no artificial sweeteners, flavors, or colors from artificial sources. They're vegan-friendly, gluten-free, and gelatin-free. All loyal listeners of the D-Lew Podcast get a special 10% discount at checkout. Go to goalie.com, use promo code DLEW. That's goalie.com, use promo code DLEW. So now that you signed the contract, and now is it okay? Are we going to go out and perform at first, or is this more or less okay? We're going to start working on music for a potential release. What was the order? I guess how did that all come to be at that time?
Well, we were still, we would still get a gig here and there wherever we could. We were still gigging. I mean, we were still doing that Chitlin circuit.
So where were some of the places, speaking of that circuit, so were they more or less local, or did you guys have to travel outside of the area in some of those circuits that were in other cities or even other states?
Actually, everything was basically local, but once we did get with Carnival, we did do a gig in Philly. I don't remember where it was. But I do remember performing with the Stylistics.
Oh, wow.
They I don't know who had top billing at the time. I think the stylistics had top billing at that. They had out. You're a big girl now. To show you how far back we're going. We're going. You're a big girl now. No more daddy's little girl. And at that time, we had out I Wanna Be, you know, and I think they had the top billing, on that. So we did get a chance to meet the stylistics, It was someplace in Philadelphia where the club was. I just do not recall, where it was. But, we did have an opportunity to do that. We went out to Pittsburgh at one time as well and did something out there. Wherever we could, get something, wherever we could get a gig going, we would go.
Creatively, when we talk about, ideas for songs and ideas for, all these other things, how, with the four of you, how were you all able to compromise in regards to who's writing lyrics or who's coming up with all these different ideas to put out at some point?
Well, it was basically Joe. It was Joe's stuff, that we did, and some stuff had already been recorded, and we went to the studio and just kind of he just kind of rearranged some things. The music was already there, and he had ownership of the music, so he just lowered this sound, brought this out more. Put the piano down a little bit more or whatever, and just kind of change some stuff from the original content from what it was. And so I Wanna Be had been recorded by another group at one time. So it was changed up a bit. They had one male lead singer with the other group, but by the time we did I Wanna Be, it was a boy-girl. Boy-girl kind of thing. It was changed up a bit. And it was different. It was more up-tempo than it had been originally recorded. By the time we did I Call It Love, again, that had been recorded by another male group. And it was all rearranged. That was all Joe's, that was his magic. That's what he did, So, but we had fun. We did some good things with that. Mm-hmm.
Now, when that was released, I Call It Love, what was the fanfare like, once that record was released, and what was in regards to notoriety and all those other things that you all were able to garner, as you guys were beginning to perform out and, perform here, perform there? How was that?
Oh, it was an exciting time. I mean, quite naturally, hometown group makes good, I remember I don't know if you wouldn't remember, but Palisades Park was opened, and at that time, and we performed at Palisades Park, live, and so it was something exciting, something different, for us. It was like, wow, we're here, we're actually performing live with our own recording, with our own sound, and something that you only dream of, but wow, you somehow kind of got to pinch yourself.
Yeah. Totally
like,
understand.
This is really real. This is really happening, and so it was exciting. It really was.
Talk about the camaraderie with the four of you. Talk about that a little bit and what that means to you now in retrospect. When you talk about, if you have a funny story and just the relationship that you have with all of the members of the group.
Oh, they were funny. You talking about three funny guys. I mean, they were hilarious. But they were fun. There was sometimes I wanted to beat them down. Honestly, because they were three funny guys who were mischievous in certain ways. I remember when we went to Pittsburgh, two of them disappeared. I mean, not from the gig, but after the gig, and the other guy and myself, we didn't know where they were, And so when they finally, got back, well, where you guys been, and we were ready to go,
Right.
So those are, like I said, there were mischievous moments. But we had our serious times, and we understood, as a group, what we wanted to do, what we wanted to accomplish, and everybody was on board with that. The seriousness of what had to be done and what needed to be done. Everybody was on board. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, during that time, though, when you talk about women in music, you could talk about your Gladys Knight, you could talk about your, Aretha Franklin's, Diana Ross, as she was starting to branch off because, obviously her brand and where she was going, Patti LaBelle, right. And there's Tina Turner, there's all these different women. Were there some of them that you looked at as a reference in regards to where you wanted to go musically?
To be honest with you, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
I was never one, even in my own personal life, I was never one to want it to, say, copy
mm-hmm.
Something else or someone else. I always liked to be original,
mm-hmm.
And whatever. I might glean an idea.
That's what I meant. Right.
Yeah. An idea, yeah. And then take it on, to something else. Yeah, I think that can happen and does happen. And it did happen, with me as far as Diana Ross is concerned. I liked her stylish, her glamour. So I would say the glamour end. So, for me, glamour was tops. Whatever you could bring on that was going to be stylish, that was going to be, the glamour, the hair, the makeup, whatever. Yes, that was very important. Absolutely important. Yeah.
Now, the second part of that question, though, did you see a solo career blossoming from catapulting from the success you had with the Pretenders?
That is a good question. It was something that kind of marinated in my mind, but to be honest with you, I don't know if I really wanted to take that leap or not.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do it, but I didn't have any plans on it doing it either. It was, like I said, it's something that you might think about.
Right.
But I never did take that step forward to, actually do it. Yeah. I think I was kind of settling in and getting accustomed to just being out there, with the three guys. But I never did take that leap, to make that, to go forward with it. I didn't.
Now, you brought to the interview a copy of the actual contract that you signed, which I'm floored that you even brought this because, again, I had no idea you were going to do this. But this is the original. And what date is that? Was it February 10th, 1970? Wow. Yeah. Unbelievable. So,
yeah.
And we can backtrack a little bit. When you had that, literally, what was going through your head at the time when you're like, I actually have a recording contract in my hand I'm about to sign?
I had, it was it was amazing. I said, I can't believe I'm doing this. Honestly, if you look up there,
yeah,
you'll see our initials.
Yeah.
At the top.
Right.
And I think
and the signature is right there, yeah.
The last page.
Yeah, the last page right there. Yeah.
The signatures, of each of us. And,
unbelievable.
And the witness and the president of Carnival Records. Yeah. So it was like, oh my goodness. I'm actually doing this.
Yeah.
You know, there again, it was a pinch moment.
Right. Now, I remember, because I had never heard I Call It Love. I used to sing it around the house a lot of times, I was growing up and stuff. But I think the first time that I actually had to hear it to hear the song in context was when I went online. This is, oh my gosh, this is going over 21 years ago now.
Okay.
And there was a site called cdnow.com, which got bought out by Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw your CD on there for sale, and I called you right away. I said, "Mom, you're not going to believe what I found." He was like, "What?" And I said, "Your CD." And I said, "You're on the cover." You're like, "What?"
Wow.
And I remember buying me a copy and you a copy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So for me, that was, I don't want to say validation, but the fact that, hey, my mom did this too. So it was a very proud moment for me as your son. And I hadn't even thought, I had ideas of getting into this business,
Right.
but I never really acted upon it.
Right.
But the fact that, I got to see it, and I'm like, man. So now in the year 2024, when you see where I Call It Love is on Apple Music or iTunes, how does that make you feel, knowing that potentially 40 million people can find the Pretenders and listen to you and your music from that time?
It's amazing to me, because that is something that I never even thought would even exist. Wow. We're looking at from 1970 to 2024.
Right.
And it's incredible. It's really incredible. I had no idea. And when you were telling me about this, I was like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But I had no idea. I really, really, really did. I think it was a compilation of different artists that was
right.
Also at Carnival, or had been with Carnival, at one time. So it was amazing. But to see that photo of us, the actual photo that we had taken in the studio. Had gone to a photographer in New York, and but to see that actual picture on a compact disc cover, it was like shocking. It was really shocking.
So obviously, there was a time where you actually you did leave the group.
Yeah.
And I believe Pat Tandy took your place at that time.
Yes.
Shout out to the legendary Pat Tandy, who's a dear friend of Madam Pat Tandy. Absolutely. She's still out there performing, guys.
Yes.
Follow her on Facebook. She's out there still performing and still living the dream. But what was the deciding factor of you were trying to wind everything down in regards to Pretenders?
How was it? Or
just more or less the process of all of that?
It wasn't easy. I'll put it that way. It was not easy. Here I had spent some time with these three guys, and here was the president of Carnival Records, and not wanting to bring about any disappointment. But I had gotten married. And I had a decision to make. There are sometimes things are difficult.
Very, very.
But it comes down to what's the most important thing.
Agreed.
And I decided, well, I've got, this is not easy, but I've got to make a decision. And I made the decision to leave the group. There was no gentle, easy way to do it. Mm-hmm. The guys were terribly disappointed, and so was the president of Carnival. He was disappointed, but they listened to me. They listened to what I had to say, and I had gotten married, and I, wanted to raise a family, and that was more, for me, that was more important, was to, for my husband and to start a family. And that's what I chose to do.
Well, I tell you, from my perspective, as we close out here, this, like I said, this was one of the coolest things I get to do, because as many stories as you've told me in conversation over the years, as many just funny little tidbits or whatever the case.
Yeah.
I never really had an opportunity to really sit down with you and just talk about this part of your life.
Wow.
Because, you were telling me to eat my vegetables and stuff like that growing up. You know what I mean? Like all those things, clean your room and all that other stuff, get your good grades and all that. But the fact that now that, I'm embarking on a path that, my dad and you kind of laid the groundwork, which I didn't even realize how monumental that is. And I remember, when I first started acting, I wanted to get, I didn't know if music was ever going to be a thing for me, but I know the acting thing I always wanted to do. And I remember once I had made up in my mind that I wanted to kind of embark on the music thing, I mainly, and I think I may have told you this, I don't know if you remember now, but I said, I want to continue where you left off.
Wow.
Because and again, I'm not saying this, guys, because this is my mom. Well, I'm kind of saying this because it's my mom, but I felt had she continued her career that she would have been along the same lines as some of those legendary artists I mentioned earlier, Gladys Knight, Patti LaBelle, because she had the talent to do it. You know what I mean? She chose to walk away to raise a family, which again, I'm super grateful that you sacrificed your career for me and Erica there, and Dad. But at the same time, to understand the history of where I come from, I knew about Dad and all that other stuff. That's cool. Went on to sing with the world famous Drifters, and that's awesome.
Right.
But I felt as though that there's still a big piece that needed to be covered. And I am so grateful that we got to do that, because, again,
wow,
it will forever be a part of my legacy.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Pretenders will always be a part of what I'm doing today. So every time I release music, I always do a pitch stitch of one of my dad's records, my mom's album cover, my album cover, and a picture of the three of us on the beach when I was about 7 years old.
Oh.
And it's more or less our letter to my parents, saying more or less thank you, because the amount of music that consumed my life as a child, I can't even tell you. There were times during the summer where my mom would be at work or whatever the case, that I would be listening to records all day long because the music was there. So.
Oh yeah, we did have plenty. Music.
Absolutely. So when a lot of times when people call me an old soul, I'm like, well, I had my mom to thank, because all of the information, all of the the knowledge and everything, and understanding the different sounds, as my mom had alluded to early in the interview, about picking up just little things. Again, it's a part of my legacy. So, Mom, I thank you for joining this episode of the D-Lew Podcast. I advise all of you to go stream my mom's music on Apple Music. If you want to buy it, it's on iTunes. Go support the cause. Appreciate it. And that's it. So I love you, Mom. I love you very, very much.
You too, son.
And thank you so much.
Thank you. I mean, I was, when you told me that you wanted me to do this, I was like, what? You want me to be on a podcast? Oh my goodness. So I am, I'm just delighted, to be a part of this and to be a part of what you are doing. And I am extremely proud of you. And I do love you dearly. I really do.
Thank you, Mom.
And thank you.
You got it. Well, that does it for this week's edition of the D-Lew Podcast. Once again, I want to give a huge thank you to my mom, Valerie Lewis, for coming onto the show to talk about everything regarding her music career that she had. And I am beyond appreciative of our family, our heritage, our everything. And when people ask me about my knowledge of all type of music genres and different eras and things of that nature. I'm getting choked up even talking about it, but I thank my mom. You know what I mean? Because she really opened up a lot of doors for me in the sense of understanding, different things, over the years. So thank you, Mom. I love you very, very much, and I hope that your future grandkids can hear this episode someday. But anyways, before we get out of here, I want to remind you all once again, hit that subscribe button regardless of which platform that you're on if you're listening to this episode, so you can get all new content. All right? Every Thursday morning, there is at least a new show every Thursday morning at 6 a.m. Eastern Time. Again, I have a song out called Espacion with Angie Stars. You can hear that record. You can stream it on all platforms. The music video is on 4 platforms. There's Tidal, Apple Music, Vivo app, and there is YouTube. My social media, again, all platforms. You can hit me at The Real D-Lew. Facebook is Derrick T. Lewis official page. Now, I know I end every episode with always remember to make it count, and I want you all to continue to do that. But this week's going to be a little bit different. Here with their single, I Call It Love, here are the Pretenders on Believe Network.
Oh yeah, maybe it's love. Maybe it's infatuation. Oh yeah, or maybe it's just sympathy for someone who is so low. Call it what you want, but I call it love. Hey baby, you can say what you want, baby, but I still say it's love. Oh yeah, you can sing it in a song, but I still sing I love. Ooh, baby, and whether right or wrong, now, baby, you better still say it's love.